All right, I'm going to try a new experiment by having a conversation about AI that is aimed to be about 5 to 10 minutes long. I just practiced and it went 17 minutes, so I need to shorten it up. All right, so I woke up today and I checked Twitter, and the latest AI news was that OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, had a dev day or developer day. So those days are specifically to announce features for developers, and they released some different features, but the main one that caught my eye was they are now releasing a real-time voice-to-voice API. Now, what is that? An API is basically a way for computers to talk to each other. So, cool. What APIs existed up until now? OpenAI had the text API, where you can send it text. It's just like using the ChatGPT app. You know, you would go then and say, hey, you're a mental health care coach. You're about to have a conversation. Are you ready? And that ability to prep and give it some background context is called the system command. So you can give it a role like, hey, you're a mental health care coach, and then it will keep that in mind. And then you send the text. You're like, hey, I'm feeling blue today, and that's the text that the user sends. So they've had that. Then they've had speech to text. So what I can do is I can record an audio voice. I can say, hello, my name is Sam, how are you doing? I send that audio file to OpenAI, and then it will transcribe what I wrote into text, which is really cool. The other API that they've had is text to speech. So let's say I use the text API, you're a mental health care coach, and I sent this sentence. I said, I'm feeling really blue today. And then the text API will respond, because it's acting like a coach. It'll say, hey, I hear that you're feeling a little blue. Like, what's the problem? That's pretty cool, but it's all text. If I want to hear it, if I'm like I'm getting car sick and I want to just hear the audio, I want to have a phone conversation, I cannot do it. But then I will get that text and I will use their text to speech API, which basically they have about 3 or 4 different voices available, and they would get that text and turn it into speech so that you can hear it. That's cool. So they had a text API, they had a text to speech API, and a speech to text API. But here's the problem. If the most natural way for humans to communicate is using voice, is to speak to one another. It's how babies talk to their parents. It's how we talk to each other. Now, if you want to create that using an AI experience, you have to use 3 API calls. You have to do voice to text. Hello, my name is Sam. And then you send it to OpenAI, it turns that into text. Then you have to get that text and send it to the text API and say, hey, you're a mental health care coach, what would you say to this person? And then it would respond saying, with text, how are you doing today? What kinds of questions do you have? But then I want to hear it, so I have to get that text and send it to the text to speech API. So those are 3 API calls. And the biggest problem is latency. Latency is how long does it take for the system to respond to you. And we can, normally with human conversations, latency is less than a second. If the person you're talking with takes longer than a minute, you think something's wrong or something is weird. Now, if you get the OpenAI, the ChatGPT app today, and you have an iOS or Android, they have the functionality. You can press it and do voice to voice. You can talk to it, but the problem is it takes like 10 seconds for them to respond to you. And that's just really unusable. It just feels very awkward. So they recently, about last week or 2 weeks ago, announced this new advanced voice mode, which the latency is much faster. The latency is like 1 to 2 seconds. So now you can feel like you have a more natural conversation. You can even interrupt it, like it's quite good. That experience, I believe they are now providing an API. So if I have an app and I want to provide mental health care coaching, and I want to allow my users to just talk, and then it will respond via voice. I can use this voice-to-voice API and first give it a system command. I can prompt it, I can prep it and say, hey, system command, here's a system command. You are a mental health care coach. You always speak in nice tones. You even have a southern drawl because you're from Texas or Mississippi. And then I say, be ready for the text that I'm going to send you, or the voice I'm going to send you. And then it already has that in mind. And so as soon as your user, let's say, uses your app and says, hey, I'm feeling really blue today, it will get that audio, send it to the voice API, and respond like the way that you want it to voice. Say, hey, how y'all doing? Oh, I hear that y'all feeling blue. What should I do? That's a terrible Southern accent anyway. But that is the magic that it unlocks. So there's a lot of people who want to create apps where it can allow your users to have a seamless conversation, voice to voice. And I think the potential use cases are endless. One example, customer service. When you're talking to customer service, oops, wrong way. When you're talking to customer service, you normally have to press 1 for options, press 2 for, nobody likes that. The ideal, like I remember when I was a platinum member at Delta Airlines, they had a special number for platinum members where a person would pick up the phone call, and then I would say, hey, I'm having an issue with my flight, and then they'd be like, oh, hey, let me check that up. The reason that's challenging as a business is operation cost. I have to hire all these people that can do that individually. What if I didn't? What if I can provide that experience to not only the platinum members, but what if I could offer that experience to everyone, all my members? Normally it would cost me, let's say, $1 million to hire the salaries of all those people, but with AI, it's a fraction of that cost. Let's say it's $1,000 instead of $1 million. So that's quite amazing. And what that effectively means for humans is that we're gonna start getting human-like, personalized experience at a fraction of the cost, which means it democratizes it. It makes it available to more people than just the few. So what other future use cases? I mean, one example that I'm thinking about is I provide coaching for startups. And I always kind of lament that I can't talk with more startups because I want to be able to help more companies. But to know their personal situations and answer their personal questions, it takes a lot of time. But what if I can get an API to mimic, not exactly perfectly be me, but mimic me, and I can make this available at a lower cost. Let's say meeting me one-on-one's $1,000 an hour. What if mimicking or using my AI bot is $10? Then the person might be like, hey, the customers that I can never talk to because I don't have the time to talk to them, now I can talk to them. And maybe they become more successful, and then when they become more successful, then make more money, maybe then they can have a one-on-one consultation. So I don't really see this as replacing the one-on-ones. What I see this more of is giving access to more people to your businesses and services that they normally could not afford, and businesses normally could not afford to provide. But now that the cost of these types of human touch, very personalized interactions are going down, now that the costs are going down, I mean, I think it's going to be quite a wild future. So I'm really excited about it. I haven't even looked at the documentation yet, but just wanted to kind of share some of my thoughts. Hope that was helpful. If you find this type of content interesting, please let me know. Link in the comments. I'm always experimenting with different types of content, so if this isn't that interesting, or if you want to hear something else, just let me know. I'm always happy to experiment. All right, thanks. Have a great day.